Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I want to share a very short teaching with you from the book of 2 Kings. And we're looking at the text from 2 Kings chapter 4. And the two characters in our text are the prophet Elijah. And I always used to be, when I was younger, I used to mix up Elisha and Elijah. And so we're not talking about the prophet Elijah. We talk about the prophet Elisha and the widow. But let's get into it and let's extract the power of this text. So it says in 2 Kings 4, verses 1, a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elijah, saying, and I'm reading from the New King James Version, your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord. And the creditors are coming to take my two sons to be a slave. So here we see in our text, Elijah, the prophet, and coming to Elijah, it's this woman, and the Bible describes her as a widow, which meant that her husband had died. And we know from culture, and when we study the Bible, we study in content, the content that's given to us. We study in context, the surrounding, what's going on, the persons, the characters, and we study it too in culture, to understand culture. So in their culture, women did not work the way we work, us modern women in our culture work today. So they were heavily reliant on their husband. So when a woman's husband died, she was a widow, she was in a destitute state. So this woman is in a destitute, desperate state. And she's coming to Elijah with a great need. And she's saying to the prophet Elijah, you know my husband feared God, is a man of God. But the creditors, they're coming to collect on debt that was left by my husband. And as payment, they're going to take my two sons. So I want you to think about that now. She's already a widow. She's already in a desperate, destitute situation in terms of finances and most likely her emotional and mental state. So on top of that, she is going to lose her children. Sons who could work and earn a living later on. It doesn't indicate their age, could potentially in future support her. So she's in a desperate situation. Let's read verse 2. So Elijah said to her, what shall I do for you? He didn't say, I got a big bag of money. He said, what shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in your house? And she said, your maidservant has nothing in the house but a jar of oil. And I want you to look at the text. The prophet Elijah did not say, oh, I'm a bag of gold, take that. He did not say, I'll pray and ask God to give you a big bag of gold to solve all your problems. He instead took her to an exercise of coaching. Like coaching, yes, he coached her. Coaching is helping someone to see what they can't see, helping someone to see what's in them, helping someone to see what's, the big picture that they may not see. So he's taken her through an exercise of personal discovery. He said, what do you want me to do? What can I do for you? And then he asked another question. And this is another thing about coaching and coaches. They ask questions. He asked her several questions. He said, what shall I do for you? And then he said, tell me, what do you have in your house? This is a poor woman. She's a widow. Husband is gone. All she got left is two children. And the creditors are coming to take her children. And the prophet asked her, what's in your house? Her response to the prophet is significant. Because first she said, there's nothing. Yes, maidservant has nothing in the house except this jar of oil. And I want you to think about that, how powerful that is. I have nothing in my house. All I got is this little jar of oil. Nothing but this little jar of oil. I mean, what could be done with a little jar of oil? Let's read. Then he said, go and borrow vessels from everywhere, from your neighbors, empty vessels, and do not gather just a few. Go to your neighbors, the people who are in close proximity to you, the people who are close, nearby to you. The people near to you have what you need. Go and borrow jars from them. And he said, don't collect a little bit, collect a lot. Let's read verse 4. And when you have come in, you shall shut your door behind you. You and your sons, nobody, not the neighbors, not the cousins, no. You and your sons, and then pour it into all those vessels. Set aside the full one. Elijah gave her instructions. He gave her the ability, the framework, the strategy to solve a problem. He did not solve a problem for her. He gave her the strategy, the framework, the blueprint to solve her problem. He said, go and borrow jars, a lot. Then he said, take the jars inside and shut your door, just you and your sons. And he said, take your oil and pour it into the jars. Take the oil and pour it into the jars. And when one jar is full, set that aside. Pour it. When that's full, put it aside. Pour it. And she went, let's continue to read, verse 5. So she went with him, from him, and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her. And she poured it out. Now it came to pass when the vessels were full that she said to her son, bring me another. And he said to her, there is not another vessel. So the oil ceased. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, go and sell your oil and pay your debt. You and your sons live on duress. So she went into a house and she poured. And she poured. And it got to a point where there was no more jars to pour into. And how do we know that? Because the text tells us. The text says when she's pouring and pouring and pouring, the thing that's in her house, she's pouring that. The thing that she has in her possession, she's pouring that. And as she's pouring that, that's expanding. So the solution to her problem was in her house. It was not in the prophet's house. It was not in her neighbor's house. The solution to her problem was in her house. She just needed to see it. So she poured and she poured and she poured. And her son, she said, bring me another jar. And her son said, Mommy, you no more jars. And she went to the prophet. And it's unique what the prophet told her, because he didn't say, take the jars with the oil and go give to your neighbors and, just give it out to your neighbors. He said, go and sell. Something that we, in the body of Christ, in church, we struggle with this mindset about selling and business. Elijah gave her a business. You see that? Elijah gave her the means to solve her problem. Business is just a means to solve problems. He said, take the oil, the jars of oil, and go and sell them. He said, go to the marketplace, because that's where they sell things. Go to the marketplace and sell your oil. That little thing that was in her house, God enabled that to be expanded and poured into jars. And she took those jars with her oil. The same little oil that was in her house, now expanded, because it's now in jars, in many jars. And she took it to the marketplace, and she made money, we know it from our text, to enable her to deal with the creditors. And not just deal with the creditors, but also enable her to live on the rest with her children. It's one of my favorite texts, but it's a very powerful principle. Prophet told her, go and sell. Selling, there's nothing wrong with selling. And we have to change our mindset about that. The Bible does teach about selling. Joseph, when he was in charge of the food in Egypt, he sold the grain. He stored it up. And when people came, they bought grain, they bought food to take back home. Selling business is solving a problem. She had a problem. The creditors were coming to take her sons. That was a problem. She was able to take her oil and put it into vessels and gain money, compensation, that she could then use to solve her problem, to address her problem. Business is just a means to solve problems. It's just a tool to solve problems. And this text is rich and loaded with revelation on business, on selling, on using your oil. So we all have oil. We all have oil in us, in our house, that we need to discover, that we need a coach to help us to see. Because in this text, Elijah was a coach. He helped a personal discovery. That's what coaches do. He helped us see you have the solution to your problem inside your house. It's in you. The same thing applies to us. We have in us something that is of value that we could use to help others, to help ourselves, to help our family, to help address issues and address problems. We have to find jars. We have to take it to the marketplace. We have to know how to maneuver in the marketplace, how to sell. Because he said, go and sell. How do you sell? Rich text, rich, powerful text. So we have to learn how to discover what's in us, how to discover our oil. We have to understand the jars that are available to us. We have to understand how to pour into the jars. And then we have to understand how to sell. How do you sell in the marketplace? And then we have to understand how to manage the money so that we address our money issues, but we also have some rest to live on. Not just us, but our legacy, our children. Go and sell your oil. That's our teaching. Thank you so much. And if you enjoyed this teaching, or you learn anything from this teaching, or you gather any value or principles or lessons from this teaching, please watch other teaching on this channel as well and share it. Please share it with others. Be an online evangelist. Share the word with others that you know can help, that this word can help. Please share it. Look in the description below. We have a summary of this teaching and other teachings that will help you. So thank you so much for being a part of our teaching today. Thank you.